I'm at the FT Madrid conference, where one of the big issues is how international investors view the Spanish economy. Here I'm with Joseph Oughourlian, Chief Executive Officer of Amber Capital. Joseph, what do you think are the reasons to be investing in Spain right now? Do you think now is a time where there is a lot of opportunity?
We do see a lot of opportunities in Spain currently. I think that we've seen a big market move upwards in the last 2 years, and that's been mostly valuation related as the euro crisis has abated and people have felt that Spain became investable again. And I think we're going to see another big upswing, which is going to be more earnings related as the economy picks up steam and you start seeing the results in the company's income statements.
But I mean, we've had a lot of interest in investing in Spain since the end of the crisis, and valuations, as you say, have gone up a lot. Is there a risk that people are buying in now at a time when the market is peaking?
We don't see that. We think that earnings are still at very depressed levels, particularly on anything that's domestic related. I think that the problem with the Spanish market is it's somehow polluted, if you will, by emerging markets earnings exposure. So obviously you've had that big drag from emerging markets, particularly Latin America, on some of the big some big Spanish corporates that are heavily invested in Latin America. However, on anything that's purely domestic related, we see a big upswing in earnings coming up.
I see. So there was a point where Spanish companies used to highlight their emerging market exposure as a way of being defensive against the problems in the Spanish economy. So now you believe that there's actually this upswing coming in domestic earnings and the emerging market growth is almost a hindrance to these companies?
Well, yes, paradoxically it is. Today investors are looking for Spanish companies that are less exposed to emerging markets, that are more exposed to the domestic upswing. Yeah.
So which sectors do you think are going to be attractive in the next year or two?
Well, we're looking at anything that's domestically related, so anything that's consumer related, think media, retail, we particularly like. Then, we think Spanish corporates have been very strong in infrastructure, so we like all the infrastructure plays. And then finally, and that's really not in fashion these days, but we're starting to buy banks, which, we hadn't touched a Spanish bank in 10 years. So, we think the valuations actually look quite attractive there, even though they've benefited less from the economic recovery.
And what about the real estate hangover from the crisis? We still have a lot of, problems in the, or at least distressed real estate assets. We have the bad bank. Do you think that this is gradually being worked through?
It is. I think commercial real estate is starting to look okay. And frankly, we're positioned for an upswing in commercial real estate. We own a number of the new SOCIMIs, the Spanish REITs, that have been listing on the Spanish market for the last 2 years. We think rents look very low and are set to rise in the coming years in Madrid and Barcelona, which are the main commercial markets in Spain. As far as the housing situation is concerned, there's still a lot of problems. There's still a big inventory that needs to be worked through, but that's mostly outside of the bank scope. That's on the bad bank, that's been marked down. So we think that's no longer a hindrance for the Spanish banking sector and hence for the Spanish economy to grow.
What impact do you think that the forthcoming Spanish elections could have on investor confidence and the willingness of international investors to invest in Spain?
Well, we've seen a lot of political fright in Southern Europe, in Greece this summer, in Portugal more recently. It looks like Spain will be all right, if I'm to believe the polls. And it looks like the Podemos issue, if you will, has peaked, and it probably peaked sometime at the beginning of this year. So political issues seem to be more on a back burner, but we're still obviously concerned. That's still the main concern on the horizon. The Catalan issue is still not sorted out, and hopefully a new government comes out of those elections and is able to sort out the Catalan issue and the Spanish economy.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Miles.